Hello guys, this is your friend DarkVerse. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto's training trip turned into the ultimate harem adventure with Fu Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Had been 2 weeks since Naruto left Konoha with Jiraiya. They were traveling down a road in the land of fire and the next town was in sight. But then Jiraiya suddenly walked off the path and towards a nearby lake, and Naruto followed. Naruto was a bit on the short side for his age at 4 feet 8 inches, and easily angered by this fact, with spiky blonde hair and blue eyes. He was wearing an orange tracksuit with blue shoulders, a white swirl with a tassel on the left side and a red swirl on the back, the symbol of the destroyed Uzushiogakure. He also wore a blue forehead protector of Konoha and blue standard Shinobi sandals. Jiraiya was a tall man of about 6 feet 3 inches with extremely long spiky white hair tied in a ponytail with 2 shoulder-length bangs and had 2 red lines that ran down from his eyes. He wore a green shirt kimono with matching pants over mesh armor and a red cloak with 2 yellow spots along with a black belt, hand guards, traditional geta sandals, a horned forehead protector with the kanji for oil, and kept a large scroll on his back. So, why are we going to this place, pervy sage, and when are you going to train me? All we've been doing is walking. Naruto asked as they continued to walk. Naruto had wondered when his real training was going to begin. He'd just been going over the basics and he was anxious to learn some cool, new technique from the Sannin. Damn it, brat, how many times have I told you not to call me that? The Sannin asked, exasperated. Though it was hard to tell if he was annoyed at being called a pervert in public, or if the self-proclaimed super pervert was annoyed at being called a regular pervert. I call them as I see them, the blonde replied while crossing his arms. If you want me to stop calling you that, stop spending all your time peeking on women, said Naruto as he looked at the man. Huh, kids these days, we'll get started as soon as I'm done with my contact in this town. You need to learn to be patient. Your lack of it and hot-headedness could get you killed someday, Jiraiya said. Anyway, for today, I want you to practice water walking and holding leaves to your body with your chakra. Your chakra control's still not what it could be. You need to master your chakra in order to form the Rasengan perfectly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You haven't taught me anything since we left and I already know the Rasengan. Would you listen to your teacher? Although it's true you can use Rasengan, you have far from mastered it. You still need a shadow clone to control the rotation and shape, Jiraiya said while holding out his hand. Naruto watched as a Rasengan formed in his palm. A battle can go to hell in an instant and your method takes more time you might not have. On top of that, you waste chakra in the shadow clones. While you have an overabundance of chakra, that doesn't mean you should waste it, Jiraiya explained with a frown. Naruto looked to the ground in thought before quickly turning his head. TCH, fine. Naruto scoffed. Stay here and practice. Don't worry, I'll start teaching you soon enough, the Sannin said as they reached the lake. Good luck, kid. Jiraiya waved at Naruto as he walked towards the town. Lazy perv, can't even stay and help me for a while. Bet he'll go straight to a brothel when he's done, if he even does have a contact to meet. Naruto grumbled as he walked on to the lake and begun to practice his chakra control. 3 hours later, Naruto was standing on the lake making a hand sign to focus his chakra and holding 5 leaves to his body with chakra with a somewhat somber expression on his face. He had, for a while, moved and practiced taijutsu while doing still keeping the leaves attached, but this was much more difficult and at the moment he was resting. Since he began his training 2 weeks ago, his chakra control had improved a little, but he was still nowhere near having enough control to form a Rasengan without one of his clones to rotate the chakra and maintain its shape. As he stood there, his mind wandered and he recalled every fight he had been in. Every major fight he had been in he had won either by using the Kyuubi or by luck. His fight against Haku, Orochimaru, Neji, Gaara, though Naruto thought that didn't really count, as Gaara had relied on the Shukaku, and Sasuke. He had tried to fight them with everything he had, and when it wasn't enough, he had relied on the Kyuubi. His other major fights, against Kiba and Kabuto, which he did win on his own, were either due to dumb luck, though the five-pronged seal had been messing with his chakra control at the time, or because he was underestimated and toyed with. Damn it, what have I been doing all this time? He thought to himself as he stared at his reflection in the water and continued to review all the battles he had fought. Then he recalled his battle against Itachi and Kisame, if you could call what had happened a fight. He recalled how Kisami's sword literally ate his chakra. The Kyuubi's chakra was useless against him. He knew he couldn't rely on it all the time, that event just proved it. That power was dangerous. He remembered with a slight shudder the bloodlust he felt when he used it against Haku. How he had nearly killed the androgynous teen in rage and thirst for blood. That power was a last resort, and it carried many risks at the moment. He thought of both his senseis and the 5 Hokage. 5 of them didn't even have bloodlines, and they were still some of the most powerful shinobi Konoha had ever produced. Looking up with a new determination, he realized that if he truly wanted to accomplish his dream and become the greatest Hokage, he would need to be strong enough to fight opponents like the Akatsuki without relying on the Kyuubi. He stopped supporting the leaves and ran towards the town, sure that after all this time, Jiraiya had finished with his contact and was probably enjoying himself at a bar or something. He created a dozen shadow clones and sent them to look for the Toad Sage while he did the same. 10 minutes later he was hopping across the buildings of the town when he suddenly remembered seeing him in a bar, surrounded by women. Why am I not surprised? Hey, wait a minute, how did I know that? Naruto proceeded to run to the bar to see if what he saw was true, and sure enough, found him at the bar, surrounded by girls. With a sigh, Naruto decided to ask him about this later and for now grab a snack and get back to training. He didn't notice Jiraiya saw him and smiled. He had noticed the shadow clone and suspected Naruto now knew about, or at least suspected, their memory transfer ability. He had wanted Naruto to realize it on his own. What are you looking at, sir? One of the women asked. Oh, nothing, now let's get back to having a good time. Ha 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 ha. 2 hours later Jiraiya finally returned to the lake where Naruto had resumed training and found him fighting a shadow clone on the lake while holding several leaves to his body with chakra. Naruto just blocked a high kick from his clone with his forearms when they noticed Jiraiya's presence and stopped their fight, the clone dispelling as Naruto ran over. Finally. I was wondering when you would finally get out of that bar, pervy sage. Naruto said. Yeah, I noticed you saw me there. When you left I didn't think you had a problem with letting me have my fun. Jiraiya replied with a smirk. Of course there's a problem. You're supposed to be training me, but so far you've been spending all your time peeking or at bars and leaving me to work by myself. That's not true, I haven't spent all my time with the ladies. I just wanted to unwind a bit after I finished with my contacts. Oh yeah, then what was so important that you needed to go off in the first place? Oh, nothing you need to worry about. Truth was Jiraiya had met a contact for any new information on Akatsuki and the other Jinchuriki, but he didn't think Naruto needed to know that, or at least not at the moment. Anyway, it's getting late. Let's call it a night and I can start training you tomorrow. The Sannin said, gesturing towards the town. All right, Naruto replied, not entirely trusting he wouldn't be blown off again. But first, I noticed something about my shadow clones. When I sent them to find you, I think I remembered what my clone saw when it found you and dispelled. Huh, so you did finally notice. Jiraiya grinned. I was wondering when you would. Wait, you knew about this the whole time. Did Kakashi-sensei know? Why didn't anyone tell me? Naruto asked surprised. I didn't tell you because I wanted you to find out on your own. Like I said when you were learning the Rasengan, you need to learn to depend on yourself. As for Kakashi, He probably didn't tell you because he was focused on Sasuke. Jiraiya said with a frown, becoming serious. Naruto looked at the ground dejectedly at the mention of Kakashi favoring Sasuke. Noticing this, Jiraiya decided to explain. Kakashi didn't favor Sasuke, he focused on him for two reasons. The first is a childhood friend he had who was an Uchiha, so he may have felt he owed the clan. Jiraiya explained and Naruto looked up at him, surprised to learn something about his sensei's past. It's his story to tell, so I won't speak of it any further. The second reason is that he could tell Sasuke was heading down a dark path and was trying to save him. But as you can tell, it didn't work. Jiraiya explained. Naruto, for once, seemed deep in thought. Talking about Sasuke reminded him of something. Hey, pervy sage, Naruto said quietly. Why did you tell me to forget Sasuke just before we left? I didn't want you to end up like me. Jiraiya said. Naruto looked at him curiously, not understanding, and noticed a look of sorrow on his face. Believe it or not, when we were kids, Orochimaru and I had a similar relationship as you and Sasuke. He explained, much to Naruto's shock. He was the genius of our generation and I saw him as a rival and a friend. When he betrayed the village, I chased after him, but no matter how hard I tried to save him, I couldn't, and after a few years, I realized the friend I once had was no more. Even if their reasons are different, Sasuke craves power, just like Orochimaru. I didn't want you to waste your time chasing after him, only to fail and realize years down the line it was hopeless from the start. Some people just can't be helped. Jiraiya explained and Naruto took on a pensive expression. Anyway, let's head back. Tomorrow your training really begins, you'll need all the sleep you can get. Alright. Hey, pervy sage, can the shadow clone jutsu help my training? Jiraiya placed his hand on his chin. Yeah, it could. With it, you could learn the different aspects of being a shinobi quickly, but there are risks. Risks? What risks? I'll explain tomorrow, now come on. Jiraiya said as he turned towards the town and gestured for Naruto to follow him. The next day, Naruto and Jiraiya returned to the clearing. Okay Naruto, listen up. When a shadow clone dispels, everything they experience and learn is transferred to the user. Because of this, the jutsu is ideal for spying. You could send a clone to infiltrate enemy lands and all they learn will be transferred to the user. But it can also be used for training. In addition to learning, experience gained is multiplied by the number of clones used. Got all that and how it's useful for training? Well, Naruto trails off. Jiraiya sighs. We're going to have to work on that. Okay, think of it this way, if a shadow clone were to learn a new jutsu, when it dispels, the knowledge will be transferred to you and you will learn the jutsu, any better. Yeah, I got it. With this I can learn a lot of jutsu really fast. Naruto exclaimed exited. He, that's right. But not only that, you could also have them work on chakra control and improving your taijutsu, or learn anything they read. If you train with 10 shadow clones in one subject, you'll reach your goal in 1/10 the time. However, you'll have to increase your physical strength yourself and there are risks. Jiraiya explained. Like what? Pervy sage. Mental stress is carried over too. Gaining too much experience and stress at once can cause damage to the user's mind. For that reason, let's stick to 50 clones for now. Originally, I had planned on training you with the Nine Tails chakra, but let's put that off for now. For now, I want you to put 30 of those shadow clones on chakra control and I'll have one of my shadow clones help the others improve on taijutsu. Jiraiya said as he created a shadow clone and thought of how this will change his plans. Alright, Naruto cried out as he made a familiar hand sign and soon 50 clones appeared. About a minute later, they were all doing as instructed. Okay, now, what am I supposed to do? Well, I'm glad you asked, Naruto. Jiraiya said with a grin that had Naruto slightly worried. Here, put these on your wrists and ankles. Jiraiya said, reaching into his cloak and pulling out 4 sets of ordinary-looking prayer beads and gave them to him. Huh, okay. Naruto replied with a raised eyebrow before he put them on as instructed, like this. Perfect. Sealing technique. 4 limbs weighted seal. Jiraiya cried out. Instantly the beads turned white. Wah! Naruto looked at the beads before falling to the ground as the beads increased in weight exponentially. What the hell, pervy sage? What? I told you, didn't I? You have to increase your strength on your own. While the Sannin said as he gestured towards the clones as Naruto got up. Work on chakra control and taijutsu, you'll work on physical strength. You'll be using those beads to train like that Lee kid. They'll change color as you train, and once they turn red, you're done. I'll supervise from over there. Yeah, that's it. Jiraiya said, pointing at a tree before walking over to it as Naruto got started exercising, grumbling once more about lazy perverts as Jiraiya sat down. Good luck, brat, it's only going to get harder from here. It's been 4 months since Jiraiya had begun to train Naruto seriously. Since then he had improved greatly. Naruto's taijutsu, which was pretty decent for a genin, was now at an average chunin's level. Naruto's chakra control had also greatly improved. He was almost at the level where he could use the Rasengan with one hand. He also learned how to dispel genjutsu, and thanks to the 4 limbs weighted seal, Naruto was able to get a lot stronger and faster in just a short amount of time. Jiraiya decided to get chakra paper when they stopped off at a ninja village so he could find Naruto's affinity. In the meantime, Jiraiya taught him to manipulate earth and fire, his own elements. He had also bought Naruto some books on anatomy, herbs and poisons, chakra and theories, the villages, history and a dictionary, and had his shadow clones read and reread them until they understood and remembered them since the beginning of the 2nd month. It took a lot to convince Naruto to do this, in some cases he had to be forced actually, but it was paying off. Naruto was gradually getting smarter, something Jiraiya was glad for. Hopefully, he wouldn't have to dumb things down for his pupil anymore. Right now, the sun was about to set and they were near the end of the day's training. Naruto's shadow clones were divided into groups of 10, training chakra control and taijutsu katas, reading the books or learning earth or fire jutsu, and he had been training this way since the 2nd month. Though he wanted to master fire jutsu as well as his own element one day, he didn't intend to learn more than a few earth jutsu, but those he had chosen to learn were extremely useful, namely, 3 jutsu for traveling underground. Naruto had begun truly appreciate his healing abilities, because for the past few weeks Jiraiya had begun to train Naruto to plan on the fly and improve his reaction times and judgment by sparring with him, which more often than not led to Naruto being beaten into the ground. The two were currently exchanging blows. Naruto managed to catch Jiraiya's arm with his elbow, throwing the Toad Sage's punch off course and leaving him wide open, or so he thought. The blonde went for a punch to the stomach, only to receive a knee to his own stomach which knocked the breath out of him, followed by a kick to the chest that sent Naruto to the ground. Alright Naruto, that's enough for now. Jiraiya said as Naruto began to get up. Man, you're brutal, pervy sage. Naruto said as he got up. What's wrong? You're the one who wanted me to train you seriously. Besides, it's paying off, isn't it? Jiraiya said with a grin as Naruto glared at him. Anyway, we'll be traveling for the next few days, so take it easy, work with your clones on chakra control, and hopefully, by the time we get where we're going, you'll be able to use the Rasengan with one hand, the Sannin said. So, where are we going next anyway? Asked Naruto curiously as he looked at the Sannin. A minor village. We need some supplies for your training and I have something to discuss with the village's council. Jiraiya said. Now, dispel your clones so we can head back to town. You got it, Naruto said as he made a hand sign. The 50 clones dispelled and Naruto reeled for a moment as all they had learned was transferred back to him. After sealing all the books, scrolls and weapons, They walked to the next town and found a cheap hotel because Jiraiya didn't like spending too much on rooms and went to sleep. That night as Naruto slept, he suddenly regained consciousness and found himself back in front of the Kyuubi's cage. What the? Why am I here? Naruto asked himself out loud. Because I called you here. A booming voice spoke. Naruto looked up at the cage and saw the nine-tailed demon fox staring down at him. Boy, it's time we talked. Kyuubi said as Naruto frowned in confusion. What would you want to talk to me about, you stupid fox? In case you forgot, last time I was here you said you wanted to eat me. And besides all you're gonna do is say the same old thing like always. Naruto said as he looked at the Kyuubi. You should be more respectful, boy. You're still weak, still powerless. Your failure to save the Uchiha should have taught you that. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he prepared to refute that. Then again, considering your recent development, perhaps you have. Naruto seemed slightly surprised. I suppose I should be thankful you're stronger than you were before. Naruto glared at the fox. 4 months ago, he wouldn't have recognized that backhanded compliment for the insult it was. I see you're smarter than you were too. Did you call me here just to insult me? No, I called you here to offer you my aid, my power. TCH. Like I'm going to fall for that. Naruto said, turning his back to the fox. It seems you have wised up since we last talked, but I'm not trying to deceive you. Kyuubi said, lowering his head to look more closely at the blonde as Naruto turned to the Kyuubi. Make no mistake, I despise the idea of this and would like nothing more than to kill you, but I am willing to lend you my aid. You don't do anything for free. So what do you want in return? Naruto asked. Smart boy, in return for my aid, there is someone I want you to kill. If you give me your word you will kill this person, I will help you control my power, so long as you do not squander it. Kyuubi told the Jinchuriki, who looked at him curiously. Why would you need my help? Why not just try to break out and do it yourself, and why now? Naruto asked and Kyuubi's massive eyes narrowed. I will tell you more of him later and my reasons for wanting him dead if you earn my respect. There are reasons I can't simply kill him myself, even if I escape this accursed cage, and I didn't make this offer before because you were helpless. I didn't believe you had the potential to kill him, even with my power, but things are different now. Kyuubi said. The way he spoke, his loathing of the situation was almost palpable. Naruto looked into Kyuubi's eye for a moment before turning and walking away. Anyway, it doesn't matter, I'm not gonna kill someone just to get stronger, come back with a better offer. The Kyuubi stood up as his container walked away. Boy, what if I told you that this person I want dead is most likely the leader of the Akatsuki and is responsible for the deaths of your parents? Kyuubi said as Naruto froze, eyes wide. A moment later he turned back to the Kyuubi. What did you say? Naruto asked, barely above a whisper. Kyuubi chuckled as he looked at his container. That got your attention, I see. The Kyuubi grinned, sensing the negative emotions, mostly rage in the boy before him. Naruto had never been told anything about his parents, and now, the first thing he hears about them is that their killer was still alive. Who is he? Naruto asked. He is someone from my past, one whom I hold unfathomable hatred for, and he is the reason why I was sealed inside you. That is all I will tell you for now. I will tell you more if you earn my respect and prove yourself worthy of this offer. Listen to me. Do you believe you can threaten me, whelp? Don't make me laugh. That pathetic sage you call a teacher likely knows something. You may even be able to figure out most of the truth from what he knows. He did know your parents after all. Naruto's eyes bulged and the Kyuubi's grin widened. Ah, that's right, he didn't tell you, did he? The fox chuckled. You will get no more on that subject from me now. So boy, do you accept my deal or not? Naruto looked deep in thought, various emotions visible on his face. Before glaring at the Kyuubi, fine, but I'll be watching you, fox. Don't think I'll just let you do as you wish. You would be a fool to trust me completely, boy. Now leave. Come back when you're ready to begin training with my power. Kyuubi replied, and Naruto closed his eyes before fading from his mindscape. Kyuubi rested his head on his arms, proceeded to return to his slumber. The Kyuubi truly hated the idea of helping Naruto, but he had little choice. He had no defense against the Sharingan's ability to control him. Freedom would mean nothing so long as Madara was alive. Besides, even if the boy somehow managed to gain full control of his power, although he didn't like it, the Kyuubi could be patient. No human lived forever, but the Kyuubi, he had all of eternity. He would be free one day, and if this paid off, in the best case when that day came, the cursed clan Uchiha would no longer be an issue. That morning, Naruto woke up and immediately a scowl appeared on his face. Was Kyuubi telling the truth? Why wouldn't he tell me? Does Grandma Tsunade know? Or Kakashi-sensei? And if they do, why didn't they tell me who they were? Naruto asked himself before getting up. Determined to get answers, he found Jiraiya sitting down in the cafeteria of the hotel, a room with long wooden tables and benches. No one was in the room with them. Hey kid, what's with that look? Wake up on the wrong side of the bed or what? Jiraiya asked, noticing Naruto's foul mood. Jiraiya, Naruto said quietly, and the old pervert frowned, wondering what could put the normally happy and energetic boy so angry with him that he would use his name. Last night, I had a talk with the Kyuubi. What? Jiraiya exclaimed. Listen, Naruto said. He wanted to make a deal with me, to help me use his power. And you trust him? Jiraiya asked, shocked the boy would make such a stupid mistake as trust the fox. Of course not. But that's not important right now. Naruto yelled. What the hell do you mean, brat? Of course it's important. Jiraiya yelled back, trying to get the boy to listen to him. Not to me right now. What I care about is that he told me you knew my parents. Naruto roared at the sage, and Jiraiya's eyes widened before he took on a serious expression. So that's it. He was telling the truth. Why wouldn't you tell me? And who else knew? Calm down, Naruto, Jiraiya said firmly and with a glare that said Naruto better listen. Naruto's eyes narrowed and he sat down. You weren't told because it was feared it would go to your head or that you would tell someone. As a Jinchuriki, you would get enough attention from enemies as it was without knowledge of your parents adding to it. I had planned to tell you as soon as you mastered your father's jutsu. Jiraiya explained. My father's jutsu? Naruto asked, calming now that he was getting answers. Yes, the Rasengan. What? But you told me, that means. That's right, your mother was Kushina Uzumaki and she was from the destroyed Uzushiogakure, and your father was Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. Jiraiya explained to a stunned Naruto as he finally heard his parents' names. The fourth was Naruto said in disbelief, countless emotions running through him and tears began to form in his eyes. He had always wondered who his parents were, always feared that they abandoned him for containing the Kyuubi, and now he finds out it was his own father who sealed it into him. Why? Why would he seal the nine-tailed fox into his own son? Did he have any idea what I would go through? Did he even care? Naruto shouted as the tears streamed down his face. Naruto. Jiraiya slammed his fist on the table, enraged at Naruto's words. Don't let me ever hear you say something like that again. Jiraiya said with a scowl. I had never seen Minato happier than the day he found out he was going to be a father. He loved you very much, I have no doubt about that. I wasn't there so I don't know what exactly happened that night, but let me ask you, could you ask someone to sacrifice their child when you aren't willing to do the same? Naruto looked at the table, eyes downcast and unwilling to make eye contact with the sage after his outburst. When he thought of what he knew about the fourth, he realized he was a man willing to make any personal sacrifice for the greater good. After giving him a few moments to think on it, Jiraiya spoke again. I'm sorry I kept this from you, Naruto, and I swear I'll make it up to you. I'll tell you everything about them, but tell me, what else did the Kyuubi talk about? You know how dangerous and persuasive he can be. Naruto paused for a moment before looking up at the hermit, responding, he told me he wanted me to kill someone in exchange for his power. Jiraiya's eyes widened. He said whoever it is was probably the leader of Akatsuki and responsible for my parents' deaths, but I thought the fourth, my dad, died sealing the Kyuubi. Naruto said quietly, and Jiraiya leaned back and cupped his chin. He did. Actually, both of your parents died fighting the Kyuubi. But, something never did quite add up about the whole thing. What do you mean, pervy sage? Naruto asked. Jiraiya briefly looked glad to hear the blonde use his nickname again, even if he didn't like it before turning serious again. Well, I was going to wait and tell you once we started talking about what your parents were like, but, your mother was the previous container of the nine-tailed demon fox. Naruto's eyes widened and his jaw dropped slightly at the revelation. There is a moment when a female Jinchuriki's seal weakens. When the Jinchuriki gives birth. A pregnancy in a Jinchuriki lasts 10 months because the chakra that normally nurtures the child is divided between it and the seal, and when she gives birth, so much chakra is directed to the child that the seal weakens, to the point that the Biju can break free, unless a seal master is present to constantly maintain it and repair it afterwards. The seal must have broken, freeing the Kyuubi. Your mother's clan, the Uzumaki, were renowned for two things. They were the greatest known seal masters to ever live, and their longevity. It was the life force from that longevity allowed Kushina to survive the Kyuubi's escape, but the damage was killing her. She likely wouldn't have survived the night. She used the last of her strength to hold down the Kyuubi while your father sealed it. But, Dad was supposed to be one of the greatest seal masters of all time. How could he have let that happen? Naruto said with a slight scowl, beginning to work out the truth from all information they had gathered. Exactly, and that is what doesn't add up. I know your father was there when you were born and he would never have let that happen. So then, this guy the Kyuubi wants me to kill, Naruto said, growling slightly, almost angry enough to channel the Kyuubi's chakra as he began to work out what situation. Jiraiya looked up with a slight glare at the prospect, himself having come to the same conclusion as his apprentice. That's right, Naruto. Whoever this guy is, he must have attacked your parents when you were born, using you and Kushina's weakened state to his advantage. He separated Minato from Kushina and broke the seal, freeing the Kyuubi to attack Konoha. Jiraiya said before adopting a thoughtful expression. But all this doesn't explain why the Kyuubi couldn't just kill this guy himself, or why he hates him so much. You have any ideas, pervy sage? Just one. Did the Kyuubi say anything else about him? Just that it's someone from his past who he hates more than anything else. Jiraiya hums in thought. Well, there is only one person I can think of, who could get through all the precautions and defenses that would have been used that night and been able to do such a thing. Who? The person I'm thinking of should have been dead since the days of the first Hokage. I'll look into this, but I doubt I'll be able to find anything. But I will say this, if it's him and he is the one behind the Akatsuki, then they are far more dangerous than we could have imagined. Jiraiya said grimly. Anyway, the Kyuubi will eventually tell you anyway, right? Naruto nodded. They sat in silence for a moment thinking of everything they learned. Jiraiya lamented over not being there for his student when he needed him. He likely wouldn't have been a match the attacker if it was who he thought it was, but with him and Minato together, that night may have turned out differently. Pervy sage, Naruto said quietly. Jiraiya snapped out of his depression and he looked to his apprentice. Could you tell me what they were like? Jiraiya smiled. Sure, kid. They spent the rest of the morning and a lot of the first day of their journey, talking about Minato and Kushina. It had been a week since Naruto had talked to the Kyuubi. He and Jiraiya were slowly traveling north using clones to train Naruto along the way. Naruto had come to respect, love and idolize his parents even more in the fourth's case, and in spite of sealing the Kyuubi into him after hearing everything Jiraiya had to say about them, he had also expressed a wish to follow in the footsteps of his parents and his mother's clan as a seal master. Also, knowing that there was someone powerful enough to use the Kyuubi and fight evenly with his father who was after him and how complicated and difficult sealing jutsu were, he had begun training more intensely and with more focus, even in areas he didn't like such as his reading, though he still didn't do more of that than Jiraiya told him he had to. Although aside from his newfound attentiveness, his personality had largely remained unchanged. He had doubled the amount of clones, and quickly decided not to dispel them all at once, and asked Jiraiya to increase the weights. Today, they were finally reaching their destination. They were walking through a forest and they see the light of a clearing. Okay kid, feast those eyes of yours on the sight before you because we have arrived. Jiraiya said while striking a dramatic pose and pointing to the clearing. Geez, pervy sage, you still act like, whoa, Naruto trailed off as he stepped into the clearing and saw an enormous waterfall. Yeah, amazing sight isn't it? Yeah, the view from here is better than last time. Wait, last time, when were you here? Jiraiya asked, a bit surprised to hear that Naruto had actually been here before. It was with Kakashi-sensei, Sakura and Sasuke, said Naruto as he looked down a bit. We came to do a cleanup job, but that changed when one of their Jonin tried to use the hero's water to take over the village. But me and Sasuke stopped him. I say, stop right there. A female voice called out. Master and apprentice look up as a half-dozen shinobi, all wearing black clothing and gray flak jackets, land in front of them. Please state your business with our village. But before Jiraiya could give a reply, one of the Taki ninja recognized Naruto. And then put his hand on the woman's shoulder and whispered in her ear. After a few seconds, the woman put her weapon down and looked at the two. Ah, I'm sorry for that. But security has to be tight, we don't want any unwanted visitors. It's a pleasure to see you again, Naruto. And you as well, Lord Jiraiya. Please follow me. The woman, as she waved her hand, and the other members of the patrol were dismissed and returned to their posts, and the Taki Kunoichi turned around and walked to the waterfall with Naruto and Jiraiya right behind her. After a few minutes, Naruto decided to make idle conversation. So how's the village been since Suion was defeated? Asked Naruto. The village has been fine, thanks to you and your team, Naruto. A lot of the village thinks of you as a hero for what you did, said the woman. Is that why you didn't blindfold me? He asked. Yes, from what I heard you are a very trustworthy person. So there was no need for the blindfold, replied the woman as they passed a series of pools. This way, she said, diving into the pool, and the duo followed soon after. After several minutes, the three emerged in the village, a beautiful village built around a lake, the lake having an island with a gargantuan tree, the leaves of said tree covering the entire village from above, rays of sunlight visibly shining through the leaves. Wow, it's more amazing than the last time, Naruto said, taking in the sight of the village as they reached the shore. Thank you, the Kunoichi replied as they climbed out of the water. This is where I take my leave. I hope you enjoy your stay, Naruto. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask, the Kunoichi replied as she looked at him. Jiraiya's jaw slightly dropped in shock seeing how well respected his pupil was, but he quickly snapped out of it. Okay, now, I have a meeting with a Taki council member and have to get some supplies. In the meantime, take a break and enjoy yourself, okay? Once I get back, we'll train here for a while, then we'll move on. Have fun, maybe find yourself a girl to have some fun with. Jiraiya said, as he and the Kunoichi walked towards a bridge leading to the island with the tree. Naruto scoffed. That's something you would do, pervy sage. Before looking around, now where should I go? Before stomach rumbled and he put a hand to it. Ah, I know, I'll find a ramen shop. With that, he raced off in search of the nearest shop selling his favorite meal. Jiraiya walked with his escort across the bridge to a 4-story building at the base of the tree that was far more elaborate than any other building in the village, the home of the village leader and meeting place of the council. They entered the building and walked to the second floor into a room. "We've arrived. Lord Shibuki will see you now," said the kunoichi as she took her leave. Jiraiya walked into the room and met Shibuki, the leader of Takigakure. A young man with black eyes and long, dark brown hair going just behind his neck. He wore gray pants and a green shirt. "Ah, you're here. It's a pleasure to meet you, Master Jiraiya," the village leader said. "Nice to meet you too, Shibuki. It's nice to see someone so young take his position seriously." Jiraiya smirked and Shibuki chuckled and rubbed the back of his head at the compliment. "Well, I have to live up to my father's legacy," said Shibuki. His father had been a hero who gave his life for the village. Drinking the hero's water to gain the strength necessary to protect the village, knowing the cost. "Anyway, let's get down to business. What is it you wish to tell me?" "Well, according to my spy network, Taki is the only minor village with a Jinchuriki," Jiraiya said, and Shibuki stiffened before narrowing his eyes. "Yes, what of it? Tell me, what do you know about an organization called Akatsuki?" After 10 minutes of searching, Naruto had gotten tired of trying to find the ramen stand and soon asked for directions. After only a few minutes he had found a ramen stand and was currently on his 5th bowl. "I have to say, this is a really nice place, the village I mean. I can see why you keep it hidden," Naruto said to the shop owner, a man in his early 30s. "Thanks kid, most write us off because we're just a minor village and get out and stay out. I've told you before you're driving the customers away." They suddenly heard someone yell from a nearby restaurant. Naruto and the shop owner snapped up at the disturbance to see a girl wearing white with green hair run by the shop and out of sight. "What was that all about?" Naruto asked as he turned to the shop owner. When he did, he noticed a look he knew all too well. It was the same look everyone in his village had given to him throughout his childhood. A look of hatred, directed at the girl who had just ran by. His gaze lingered where she had been before he turned back to Naruto. "Oh, nothing. That girl's a kunoichi, but she's trouble. She was probably trying to steal something," he said, not willing to reveal one of the village's secrets to an outsider. Naruto could tell the man was lying. He didn't know why she was treated this way, but she had apparently lived through the same hell he had. Worse possibly, the old man, the third Hokage, had protected him throughout his childhood. Considering what he just saw, she likely didn't have such protection from whatever caused her problems. It didn't take him a moment to make a decision. "Hey, old man, can I get 2 orders to go?" The young kunoichi ran through across the village, eventually finding herself at the giant tree at its core. The green-haired genin had just been trying to get a decent meal from one of the stores that had, until now, allowed her to buy from it, but apparently, people didn't want to buy from a shop that let the demon buy things. Of course they would choose their business over helping her. There were few in the village that didn't see her as the Nanabi, and those who didn't were in no position to help her. The 14-year-old girl's life had been hell, and what little kindness she had been shown was disappearing over the years. She was starting to become cynical about the world in general. "Hey!" A voice she didn't recognize called out. She turned to see a yellow-haired boy with whisker marks standing on the side of the tree with his chakra. Naruto looked down at the kunoichi as he got a good look at the girl. She had spiky mint green hair, tan skin, and wore a short white shirt that showed her midriff with a white mini skirt with bandages on her legs and under her shirt and white armlets, her forehead protector tied around her right arm, and white shinobi sandals, reminding him of Ino Yamanaka, who wore almost the same thing but purple in color. What Naruto focused on, however, were her eyes, first on the fact that they were orange, his favorite color, and then on the fact that they held a look similar to the one his own eyes used to carry, a sad and lonely look. They also had a hint of distrust, showing she had likely been betrayed more than a few times, before they hardened. She looked at the boy before her, noting his forehead protector. "What do you want?" she said, scanning him for any signs of hostility or deceit. Hi, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I saw what happened and thought maybe you'd like some of this. Naruto said, holding up a cup of ramen. The kunoichi raised a brow. Naruto Uzumaki, you're the hero of our village. What is someone like you doing talking to me? Said the kunoichi as she looked down and saw the cup of ramen in his hands. Why would you give me this? Well, like I said, I saw what happened and I don't think you should be treated like that, so I thought you might like some company. The kunoichi looked at the boy, debating whether or not to trust him. She decided to give it a shot, seeing as she was hungry and he was from another village and didn't know what she was, and it might be nice to be treated normally, even if for a little while. Fine. She said, taking the cup. She did like ramen, even if it wasn't her favorite meal. She and Naruto ate together under the tree in silence before Naruto spoke up. So, you never told me your name, he said, trying to get the girl to open up. It's Fu, just Fu, said the green-haired girl, and they were silent for a few more moments. So judging from your headband, you're from Konoha. What's it like? Fu asked and Naruto smiled. It's great. It's a lot bigger than Taki and they have the best ramen stand in all the nations. There's also a huge monument to the Hokage, their faces carved into a mountain. That's so. Yeah, and one day, I'll have my face on the monument. You want to be Hokage? Why? Fu asked and was surprised when Naruto briefly looked sad, the same look she often saw in her own reflection. When I was young, I was an orphan and hated by everyone. Everywhere I would go, people would glare at me and insult me, and I didn't know why until recently. Until then, I wanted to be Hokage so everyone would have to acknowledge me as the greatest ninja of the village. But some people acknowledged me and they rescued me from being alone. Now, I want to be Hokage to protect those who are precious to me. Naruto said. Fu looked at the ground, surprised and depressed at how similar his past was to her own. Well, I wish you luck, Naruto, and thank you for the ramen, said Fu with a smile. Thanks and you're welcome. Hey, anything exciting happened since you became a ninja? Fu smiled. A few. What about you? I got some good stories, like the time me and my team fought Zabuza Momochi. With that, the two began trading stories about their time as ninja. Jiraiya had finished his business with Shibuki and had gotten all the supplies he needed. He was currently looking for his apprentice. After about 5 minutes, he had finally found his student talking to a girl at the base of the sacred tree, and he said he wasn't like me. The old pervert thought to himself with a chuckle before he noticed who the girl was. His spy network had informed him of Taki's Jinchuriki. After watching them from a perch on the tree for a moment, he jumped down as he landed, noticing how the girl reacted defensively and noting the look in her eyes. Naruto, I see you took my advice on finding some company, Jiraiya said as he landed. Pervy Sage, finished your meeting with Shibuki? Pervy Sage? Fu asked with a raised brow. Don't be fooled by anything the brat might say. The man standing before you if none other than the Toad Sannin, the sage of MT. Mayuboku, the gallant Jiraiya. Jiraiya said as he struck one of his poses. Is he kidding? Fu asked skeptically. I've seen him fight, he's as strong as he says he is, but he's just a pervert otherwise. How many times do I have to tell you, brat? I'm not some pervert, I'm a super pervert. Jiraiya said proudly. Naruto and Fu just stare at him in disbelief. Is he really Jiraiya of the Sannin? Fu asked, not believing that such a renowned ninja would act like this. Yeah, just ignore him when he gets like this, Naruto said, and Jiraiya sulked for a moment before becoming serious. Ahem, anyway, I finished my business and got the chakra paper we needed, so we can start training. Okay. Hey, pervy sage, can Fu join us? Naruto asked, much to Fu's shock. Huh, sure kid, if she wants to I don't see why not. Jiraiya replied. Well, how about it? Naruto asked. Sure, I would be happy to train under Jiraiya of the Sannin and my team won't care. Fu replied. Okay, Good thing they sell these cards in groups. Jiraiya said as he pulled out the small sheets of paper. Have you used these before? Jiraiya asked Fu, receiving a shake of her head in response. Okay. Listen up, this paper reacts to your chakra. If you have a lightning nature affinity, then the paper will crumble, wind and it'll split in half, fire and it will burn, water it will get wet and earth and it will turn to dust. Jiraiya said before he handed Naruto and Fu each a card. They channeled their chakra into the cards and Naruto's split in half. Fu's, on the other hand, crumbled before getting wet. Naruto, you have the wind affinity, whereas you, Fu, seem to have been born with both water and lightning. Now, we can begin training you in nature transformation. Great. Can we get started, Arrow-sensei? Fu said with a smirk. Damn it, brat, look what you did. Jiraiya wailed and Naruto and Fu shared a laugh while Jiraiya grumbled how brats today showed not respect for their elders. A few moments later and Naruto was making a familiar cross-shaped hand sign. Hold on, Naruto. Jiraiya said. What is it? Since your friend is joining us, maybe you should go easy and cut your clones back down to 50, until we leave anyway. Okay. Good. Now listen closely. Wind is the rarest of the 5 basic chakra natures. They can deal in blunt force or precise cutting and piercing attacks and is best suited for short and mid-range combat. To manipulate wind, you must imagine splitting your chakra in two, make those pieces as thin and sharp as possible and compress them together. While manipulating your chakra like this, use your chakra to split a leaf into 2 halves. Piece of cake, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto shouted as he created 50 shadow clones. Wow, you must have some large reserves to create this many just for training. Wait, what are they doing? Fu said. She was sure she could do something similar, since Jinchuriki all have large reserves, but was surprised when 5 of the clones get books from scrolls and began reading while the rest gathered leaves from the tree. Shadow clones have a special ability. They transfer all the experience they gain to the user when they dispel. So with 1 shadow clone you train twice as fast, with 50. Naruto trailed off. Wow, that's incredible. You'll be able to learn new jutsu in no time like this. Fu said in awe, imagining how quickly one could learn with such an ability. Yeah, pretty amazing, huh? I wish I had known about this earlier. There are some drawbacks though. Naruto said. Like what? Fu asked. Well, most couldn't do this. Takes too much chakra to create this many clones, let alone use them for long enough to actually learn anything. Plus, you get their stress too, and learning too much at once can give you a headache. I'd imagine so. Okay. You two, I'd like you two to spar while your clones get the basics of wind manipulation. Jiraiya said. I'm up for it. What about you, Naruto? I'd like to see what the future Hokage can do. Fu said. Sure. A spar sounds like fun. Naruto replied. Alright. No clones, okay, you two. Okay. Ready, Fu. Naruto said as they got in position in the field and Jiraiya sat on one of the roots of the tree. Yeah, let's go. Fu said before held her in forward. Hidden waterfall style. Water slicing blade. Fu said and suddenly, a blade of water formed in her hand and she rushed forward. Naruto drew a kunai and blocked a downward slash, kicking off an exchange of blows before Naruto suddenly jumped high, doing a backflip in midair before he threw his kunai and ran through hand signs. Fu dodged the kunai and looked up just in time for Naruto to finish his hand signs. Fire style. Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Naruto yelled before breathing out several small fireballs. Fu dodged 3 before rushing forward and cutting through a 4th with her water blade. She was halfway to the boulder on which Naruto was going to land when he touched down and said boulder broke apart into a cloud of dust which revealed a hole in the ground when it cleared. He's underground, he could appear anywhere, Fu thought before she closed her eyes to concentrate. Much to Jiraiya's surprise, insects begin to crawl out from her back and cover the ground. Naruto popped out of the ground behind her and was covered with them. With the insects having shocked him and sent his attack off course, Fu punched him in the stomach, only for him to be replaced with a log. She heard a splash and found Naruto had jumped into the lake to escape the chakra-draining bugs. Damn, I need to train more with that jutsu, I should have sensed that. Naruto thought as he swam to the surface. Fu meanwhile was waiting for him to resurface while her insects returned and they informed her of something shocking. They had sensed traces of Biju chakra in his chakra network. He's a Jinchuriki, he really is just like me, she thought, eyes wide open and mouth agape. A look Jiraiya didn't miss. Familiar with the Aburame clan's abilities, which seemed similar to hers, he had a good guess what she just found out. Naruto finally jumped out of the water and made hand signs. Fire style. Flame bullet. Naruto spit out a large ball of fire which snaps Fu out of her shock and she prepared a counter. Water style. Violent water wave. A large amount of water gushes from Fu's mouth, washing away the fireball. When the jutsu ends and the water clears, Naruto is nowhere in sight. Suddenly, hands reach out of the ground and grab her ankles, pulling her down and burying her up to her neck. Just afterwards, Naruto jumps out of the ground in front of her. Looks like I win, Fu. Naruto said with a smirk. Yeah, now help me out. Fu replied. That was pretty good, you too. Jiraiya said, walking forward as Naruto got Fu out of the ground. I'd say you two could take the average Chunin without much problems. Now, Naruto, join your clones on learning wind manipulation. Fu, since you've obviously got water down already, I'll help you start on lightning. Jiraiya said. Okay, what do I need to do? Fu asked. The lightning element is used to electrocute, paralyze and pierce its opponents, as well as increase the user's speed, though that's rare. It uses more chakra than the other elements, but it pays off with the amount of damage it can cause. It is produced by increasing the high-frequency vibrations of your chakra. Got all that? Yes, Ero-sensei. Fu said, smirking when she saw him twitch at the name. For the rest of the day Fu trained with Naruto and Jiraiya. She had opened up to the two a little more by the end of the day. The next day Jiraiya told Naruto to take the day off and told Naruto to enjoy himself with his new friend, hoping he could get some research material out of his apprentice. As he walked through the village, Naruto was surprised to find that while he wasn't shunned, Taki wasn't as hospitable as it had been the day before. He didn't know it yet, but word had gotten around about him associating with Fu. Naruto walked around the sacred tree, Fu having agreed to meet him there before they got back to training. Hey, Fu, how are you? You alright? Naruto said as he approached Fu and saw her looking out at the lake with a melancholy expression on her face. Sorry, Naruto, Fu said quietly. Sorry. For what? The reason you're being treated differently, it's because of me. Because you've been talking to me. Huh, that's why they're giving me the cold shoulder all of a sudden. Don't worry about it, I don't care what they think. You must be used to it, right? Huh, you're a Jinchuriki, aren't you? Naruto stiffened. So, I was right, Fu said sadly. How? My insect sensed a Biju's chakra in you when we sparred yesterday. I'm glad I met another Jinchuriki. Fu said and Naruto's eyes snapped up to her face. You're one too? Naruto asked and Fu nods. My mom was the last Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, the nine-tailed demon fox, Naruto said, surprising Fu. You know a Jinchuriki's seal weakens when they give birth. When I was born, someone attacked and used that to break the seal, so the Kyuubi would destroy the village. My father sealed it into me to stop it. 12 years ago, the previous host of the Nanabi, the seven-tailed rhinoceros beetle, lost control and went berserk while trying to master her power. She killed many of our shinobi and citizens before some of our ninjas sacrificed themselves to subdue her by using the hero's water. But by then it was too late, the seal broke and it was sealed into me. And they blame you for the lives it took, don't they? They glare at you and whisper behind your back, they act like you're a monster, even though you haven't done anything. You feel like you're completely alone. Naruto said, having faced the same treatment in Konoha. We're all treated the same, aren't we? Fu asked with a sad smile, able to tell Naruto was speaking from experience. Is there anyone who accepts you? No, Naruto. I'm not as lucky as you. There isn't anyone here who thinks of me as a person. If there is, they don't do anything to help. There are some who tolerate me, but that's it. I would leave this place if I could, but they would just drag me back. You don't have any friends? No one. Fu shakes her head. Well, you can count on me, Fu. I'll be here for you. I'll help you whenever I can, and I never go back on my word. Naruto said with a toothy grin. Fu looks up at him and smiles warmly, a tear in her eye as she finally had someone who knew what she'd been through. Thank you, Fu said. Later that day the village council was meeting. Shibuki had just revealed everything he had learned from Jiraiya the previous day to the council members. They had been shocked that there was an organization hunting the Biju, especially when they heard the names of the 2 known members and 1 former member. Who in the ninja world hadn't heard of Itachi Uchiha and Orochimaru? They were strong for a minor village, but they knew they couldn't fight such a group, especially considering how strong the leader must be to control such people. We cannot let our Jinchuriki be stolen from us, a male member of the council, Saburo said. Why do you want to protect that monster? I say we just let them take her. The Nanabi has been nothing but trouble. Most of the village would be glad to be rid of her. A woman named Akane said. Shibuki was about to speak out against her when someone else beat him to it. Are you insane? We can't let them take the Nanabi, said a man named Shin. I'm surprised you would protect the demon after losing a son to it. Akane replied. Shin narrowed his eyes. Don't mistake my intent. Don't forget who we're dealing with. One of the members of this Akatsuki is Itachi Uchiha, from the same clan as Madara, the only man to ever fully control the Kyuubi while it was unsealed. Think of how powerful their leader must be to control people like him, Kisame Hoshigaki and Orochimaru. While the chance is slim, they may have some method of controlling the Biju. If that's the case and monsters like that get one of the stronger Biju, let alone all 9, it would be nothing short of a complete disaster, said Shin with conviction. The others, some hesitantly, nodded. We would lose too many shinobi defending her. But what if we gave her to another village, like Konoha for instance? Suggested a woman, Kyo. This suggestion was met with a lot of resistance. What? Akane? You said yourself no one in the village would miss her. We would be rid of the demon, the Nanabi would be protected from the Akatsuki, and we would get something in exchange for it and strengthen our alliance with Konoha. Besides, what good has the Nanabi done for us? None of its Jinchuriki have gotten far in controlling it, and both eventually lost control. The last one lost control within the village, Kyo said, and the others debated internally. She did have a good point, but they still didn't want to give away such a resource or strengthening another village, even an ally, but from the looks of things they would lose it anyway. At least this way they could get something out of it. Let's adjourn for today. Think about the situation tonight and we will decide tomorrow, Shibuki said. Personally, he hoped to go with Kyo's idea. Not just to protect Taki, but also so Fu would have a chance to be happy. He was one of the few who felt sorry for her, but his duties kept him from being there for her. He hoped that if she left, she could find happiness somewhere. Was early morning in Konohagakure. It was going on 5 months since Naruto and Jiraiya left, and it was largely business as usual for the people of the Hidden Leaf. Tsunade had grown used to her new position as Hokage, which meant she wasn't found sleeping on her desk beside stacks of papers anymore. Of course, doing all that work didn't mean she didn't occasionally find time for distractions. Just as she was about to get out a bottle of sake she had managed to conceal from Shizune, there was a knock on the door. Tsunade sighed to herself, her hand retreating from her hidden sake. She sometimes had to question why she took the job. That blonde brat had gotten to her, and while she had to admit it felt good to be back and she was happy to help the village, she didn't have to be Hokage to do that. Speaking of him, it was kind of dull without him around, less of a headache but still. In the short time she had known him he had become almost like a grandson to her, but between her paperwork, training Sakura and recently Ino as well, it was not like she was bored. Come in. The door opened and a black-haired woman from Konoha's aviary came in holding a scroll. Lady Tsunade, we just received a message from Takigakure. From Taki? Tsunade asked, wondering what they could want. They're requesting a few amendments to the alliance between our villages, trades and, well, look for yourself. The woman said. Tsunade took the scroll and read it. After a few moments, her eyes widened and seconds later she sighed. She would have to call a meeting of the council to discuss this. An hour later, Tsunade sat in the conference room at the end of a long, plain table with the village's clan heads and the advisory council members. Let's begin, Tsunade said seriously, a slight frown on her face knowing they were trading a person, likely without said person's knowledge, but aware that Taki didn't have the resources to protect their Jinchuriki from the Akatsuki. Earlier today, we received a messenger bird from Taki. From Taki? What do they want? Homura asked with a furrowed brow. Does it have something to do with Uzumaki? They had all been surprised when they had heard of the boy's status as a hero in the village. No, although Jiraiya and Naruto arrived in Taki 2 days ago, this has nothing to do with either of them. They made requests of us. They wish for funds, aid and for us to funnel missions to them, among other things. I assume they've offered us something in return and are not merely wasting our time. Kaharu asked. In return, they're offering us, the Nanabi Jinchuriki. Tsunade said, and looks of slight surprise crossed the faces of everyone else in the room. Troublesome. Shikaku said, his strategic mind, along with Danzo's having already figured out Taki's intentions. They don't want to defend their Jinchuriki from the Akatsuki, so they think that by giving us their Jinchuriki, not only do they protect themselves but they can request something in return while pushing the problem onto us. While I do not like the idea of being used so obviously, Konoha would gain another powerful weapon. Who is the current Nanabi Jinchuriki? Danzo said. A 14-year-old genin girl named Fu, we can have her leave with Jiraiya. She will benefit from his training and Akatsuki wouldn't attack any sooner than they would have before. Tsunade said. Should we really accept? We would make ourselves a bigger target for the Akatsuki, having 2 Jinchuriki. Choza said. We do not know if they can control the Biju or use them in some way aside from creating new Jinchuriki or not. Hiyashi said calmly. If they can, every Biju they gain increases their threat, to us in all villages. That aside, we would gain the power of another Biju. Currently, both Iwa and Kumo, both of whom we have poor relations with, each have 2 Jinchuriki. In addition, one of Kumo's Jinchuriki has achieved total control of his Biju, the Hachibi, as discovered by our 4th Hokage during the last war. Danzo said calmly. Possessing another Jinchuriki would be good for the village. The child would also be unlikely to betray us. Jinchuriki are pretty much treated the same, but thanks to Naruto, the current generation as well as many others have seen they are not the demons they contain. She is more likely to choose us over a village that has always treated her as a monster. Even if that's not the case, the boy seems to have a way with people. Shibi said. Many nodded. They knew of the change in Neji Hyuga and the effect the blonde had on Shibuki. Danzo, of course, still intended to have Fu put under close observation from his root shinobi. In Taki, Naruto and Fu were training under Jiraiya. Fu was kind of jealous of Naruto's shadow clone jutsu. She was already far behind Naruto in learning to manipulate her element. With 10 of his clones as well as himself devoted to learning his wind nature, he was progressing 10 times as quickly as her. Fu was happier than she had ever been in her life. She had actually met and befriended another Jinchuriki and Jiraiya didn't care that she was one. They kept training till midday, at which point Jiraiya told them to take it easy for the rest of the day. At the moment, Fu was standing under a tree, waiting for Naruto to return with something to eat. She would go too, but most places they could get something already cooked would likely kick her out. She looked up as she heard Naruto approaching, and raised a brow when she saw he brought ramen again. Ramen again? Fu asked. Yeah, what's wrong with that? Naruto replied. Nothing, you just seem to like it a lot. Well, it is my favorite food, it's pretty much all I used to eat back in Konoha. Fu looked at him with a furrowed brow. Naruto, that can't be healthy. I know you like it, but why would you eat it all the time? Naruto looked to the ground. Well, besides the fact that it's my favorite, remember that ramen stand I mentioned? Its owners were two of the first people to be nice to me. The old man Tuki and his daughter Ayame were two of the first people to see me as a person, instead of the Kyuubi. They're like family to me, so I made sure to spend as much time there as I could. Oh, I see, sorry I reminded you of that. It's alright, besides, it's nice to talk about it with someone who understands what it's like. Naruto said with a smile, and Fu nodded. The closest to that for me was that shop you saw me chased from. They didn't really care, they just thought my money was as good as anyone's. But apparently, no one wanted to eat at a place serving the village demon. Oh, but, if that hadn't happened, we might have passed each other by without saying a word, and it's not like I can't cook. Yeah, you're right, so I guess it worked out for the better. Naruto said with a smile which Fu returned. She didn't really like going there anyway, they served her but always made it clear she wasn't welcome. Just as they had almost finished with their meals, a Taki Nin landed before them. Fu, Lord Shibuki requests your presence. You are to report to him immediately. The man said. Fu nodded and looked to Naruto. It's fine, I get it. See you later, Fu. Naruto said, and the green-haired girl nodded before she disappeared in a body flicker. She entered the building and walked through the halls to Shibuki's office, knocking before entering. Welcome, Fu. The village leader said. Greetings, Lord Shibuki. You wanted to see me. Fu replied and was put on guard when Shibuki gave her an apologetic look. Yes. Fu, I regret to inform you that starting today, you will no longer be a shinobi of Taki. Fu's eyes widened in shock. Wah, what do you mean? What am I supposed to do if I'm not a ninja? Fu yelled, angry and a bit afraid. Taki saw her as a weapon. If they thought she wasn't good enough, they may extract the Nanabi. I didn't say you would no longer be a shinobi, Fu, it's just that you will no longer be a ninja of this village. You're being transferred to Konoha, effective tomorrow. You're to leave the village with Master Jiraiya. What? Is that why they came here? Fu asked, fearing she may have been betrayed again and they had come to get another weapon for their village. Not exactly. Jiraiya and his apprentice came on a training trip, as I know they have told you, but also to warn us. Warn us? About what? Fu asked, wondering what it could be to cause them to simply give her away. There's an organization called the Akatsuki. We have heard a little of them. They're an organization that works in groups of 2 and every member is an S-class missing nin, including Itachi Uchiha, Kisame Hoshigaki, and formerly, Orochimaru of the Sannin. Shibuki explained, much to Fu's shock she recognized those names. Right now, they're acting as mercenaries, taking any job for the right price, as well as bounty hunters, but Master Jiraiya has uncovered their true objective. What is it? The Biju. Shibuki said grimly, causing Fu's eyes to bulge and her jaw to drop slightly in shock and fear. They were coming after the Biju and by extension the Jinchuriki. Then a look of realization appeared on her face before her eyes narrowed. So, the council decided to get rid of me so they wouldn't be a target. I'm surprised they didn't just give me up to them. I would never have allowed that, but I won't lie to you, the idea did come up. Fu looked to the ground, eyes shut and trembling with rage. Her village was just going to abandon her and kick her out. Even if she hated the place, it was her home. Some part of her had wanted to prove them wrong and show them she wasn't the monster they thought she was. That and the thought that they had actually considered letting the Akatsuki take her to save their own skins. For what it's worth, I was for the idea for you to go to Konoha, but not to protect the village, though that's part of it. Shibuki said, and Fu looked up at him. Fu, you know as well as I do most of the village will never accept you, and I've been watching you since Jiraiya and his apprentice arrived. Don't deny that the time you've spent with those two has been the happiest you've ever been. Fu's anger subsided and a melancholy look played across her face. Fu, take this chance to find people who accept you, find a place where you won't be an outcast, where you can find the happiness you deserve. I have faith in you and wish you luck. Thank you, Lord Shibuki. Fu said as Shibuki held a scroll to her. You don't have to call me that anymore. Here, take this message to Master Jiraiya. It will explain everything. Goodbye, Fu. I'm sorry I couldn't help you more. Fu nodded and quietly walked out. That night, Fu walked to the hotel she knew Naruto and Jiraiya were staying at and walked to their room and knocked on the door. Naruto answered. Oh hey, Fu, what's wrong? Fu began to sob and hugged Naruto. Much to his and Jiraiya's surprise, Naruto held her until she calmed down and she gave the scroll to Jiraiya. He read it and scowled slightly. Huh, didn't see that coming. Jiraiya said. What is it, pervy sage? Well, apparently, Taki decided that they would rather give Fu to Konoha than try to defend her from the Akatsuki. What? Fu, you're telling me these bastards are just going to abandon you? Naruto yelled. Fu, who was sitting on the floor, just hugged her legs to her chest. Where's the village council? I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. Naruto. Fu said, and the blonde calmed a bit. It's okay, I'm fine. I told you I'd like nothing more than to leave, and it could be worse. Shibuki said they even considered just letting them take me. They what? Naruto. Jiraiya said. Just calm down, nothing can be done about it now. I was planning to wait a few more days, but, let's head out in the morning. Yeah, I can't wait to get out of this place. Naruto growled. Fu just nodded. She really couldn't wait to put this place behind her forever. There was little she would miss about the village. Can I stay here tonight? Fu asked. Sure. Got your own sleeping bag? Jiraiya asked, and Fu nodded. They all got ready for bed, just before they all lay down. Fu looked at Naruto, whose sleeping bag was next to hers. Naruto. Huh, we're friends, aren't we? Naruto looked surprised before he smiled. Why are you even asking? Of course we are. Fu smiled back at him. Thank you, I didn't think I'd ever have a real friend. Fu said. The next morning, Fu had sealed all her belongings into a scroll and left the village with Jiraiya and Naruto. After they stepped out of the waterfall, she looked back at the waterfall that marked the entrance to what had been her home, and after a moment, she removed her forehead protector from her arm and threw it into the water. I'll show them, I'll become one of the most powerful ninja the elemental nations have ever seen, I'll show them what they threw away. Fu thought, realizing a moment later that that was similar to Naruto's initial reason for wanting to be Hokage, acknowledgement, and realized how much these two, the first to accept and help her besides Shibuki, had come to mean to her in such a short amount of time. And I'll use that power to protect everyone who accepts me. Hey, Fu, Naruto said, snapping Fu out of her thoughts. What? I just realized since you're going to be a Konoha ninja, there's nothing stopping me from teaching you the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto said, and Fu's eyes widened. That's true, and with it you'll be able to train as quickly as Naruto. You'll need it with the Akatsuki after you, and with both of you, Konoha will likely be a bigger target to them. Naruto, you teach her to use the Shadow Clone Jutsu while we travel. Jiraiya said. Where are we going, Jiraiya-sensei? Fu asked. What? No, Arrow-sensei, anymore. So, you've finally seen that I'm a man worthy of the utmost respect. Jiraiya said with a grin. No, I just noticed it's not bothering you as much anymore. Jiraiya twitched and Fu adopted a thoughtful expression. But if you want me to call you that. No. That's alright. No. I think I will keep calling you Ero-sensei on second thought, think of it as a term of endearment. Fu said with a smirk. Jiraiya grumbled about disrespectful brats in Naruto and Fu shared a laugh at his expense. Anyway, where are we going? The land of rivers. I know a place that's perfect for what I have in mind. Doesn't hurt that the country also has some lively towns and a minor ninja village, among other things. A week later, Naruto, Jiraiya and Fu were traveling down the road in a dark, mountainous forest near the border to the land of grass. The skies were overcast and it looked like it could start raining any moment. Fu had gotten the shadow clone jutsu on the second day and she and Naruto had devoted all their clones to learning to manipulate their new elements whenever they stopped. With 100 clones devoted to learning it, they had already gotten basic manipulation of their elements down. Naruto could split leaves and Fu could create a decent electric charge, but they were not yet good enough to use their elements in battle. Hey, where are we, pervy sage? This place gives me the creeps. Naruto asked, trying to mask his fear. Something that wasn't too well known. Naruto had phantasmophobia, an irrational fear of ghosts, phantoms and the supernatural paranormal, and this place definitely had that kind of vibe. We're near the capital of the former land of necks, Kubasaki Pass. Jiraiya answered. Kubasaki Pass? As in broken neck, Naruto said, pointing to his neck with his eyes wide. What? Don't tell me the future Hokage's scared. Fu teased with a playful smirk. What? No. Of course not. So, why do they call this place that anyway? Naruto asked. He does have a point, it's not exactly inviting. Fu said. It's named in honor of the Kubasaki clan. They were the feudal lords of the land of necks, until they were destroyed in a war 50 years ago. Jiraiya explained, before pausing as he felt something. He looked to the sky, his students followed his gaze just as it began to rain, quickly picking up into a downpour. Oh great. Come on kids, move, he said as they began to run. As they ran down the road, a foreboding castle becomes visible from the tree line. Huh, that must be the castle of the Kubasaki clan. Come on, we can stay there for the night, it should be abandoned. What? We're staying there. Why not just walk straight the next town? It's just a little rain. Naruto asked. He would never set foot into the place by his own free will, even if it meant staying out in the rain all night. I knew it, you are scared. Fu said. No, I'm not, I just want to get where we're going faster. A little rain never hurt anybody. Naruto replied as they ran to the castle. They walked in to find that the castle was well lit and in perfect condition, as if there were still servants taking care of it. What the? Didn't you say this castle was abandoned, Ero-sensei? Fu asked, looking around. It should be. Jiraiya said tensely, on guard and prepared to react at any moment. Hey, is it okay if we take shelter from the rain here? Naruto yelled but received no answer. He then turned to his teacher, noticed the serious look on his face. What's wrong, pervy sage? I don't know, I feel as if I've been here before, Jiraiya replied, looking around. Why does this feel so familiar? Well, let's have a look around, Fu said as she walked towards what appeared to be the dining room. Wait a minute, now I know why this place seems familiar. Jiraiya exclaimed, unable to believe he couldn't figure it out before. The feeling he got from the place was almost identical to his summoning, toad shop technique. He guessed it was harder to tell since he wasn't the summoner, but still he should have noticed. We have to get out of here now. Devour. A booming voice resonates from all around them, causing Naruto and Fu's eyes to widen as Jiraiya's narrowed. Wah, what was that? Naruto asked in a panic. I am the castle, and by order of Kubasaki, all who enter shall be devoured. The voice said. Suddenly, the doors around them opened and several tongues shot out and tried to grab them. The three dodged the tongues and jumped off the floor as acid poured through the cracks in the wood. What the hell's happening? Fu shouted as they landed on a still dry portion of the floor. Hey pervy sage, what's going on? This is just like when you summoned that toad when Itachi and Kisame attacked. Naruto said, calmer now that he was almost sure they weren't dealing with ghosts. You're right, Naruto, it is just like that. We're in the belly of the beast. Jiraiya said seriously. What? Both his apprentices snapped their heads to him, eyes wide. This is a summon disguised as a castle, meant to devour all who set foot inside. Jiraiya explained. He drew back his hand, forming a Rasengan. Stand back, I'll have to blast our way out of here. All of a sudden, everything stopped and returned to normal. As the three look around in bewilderment, the main door opened and a man wearing the armor of the Kubasaki clan walked through the door, surrounded in blue light. What? Who's that? Naruto asked, watching as the man walks by them. Hey! He called out, not receiving a response. Should we follow him? Fu asked. Why not? There's no point in tricking us when we're already trapped. Jiraiya said before following the man with his students behind him. Not like this could get any worse, right? Naruto asked. Fu turned to him with a deadpan expression as they followed their sensei. Naruto, don't ever say that. They followed the man up the stairs. He disappeared from sight at the top of the stairs, and when they reached the top themselves, they found he had vanished. Wait, where'd he go? Naruto asked. That's not important. Look. Jiraiya said. The summon contract. Jiraiya said, pointing to an altar in the room with a scroll. They walked forward and saw a picture of a chameleon on the scroll. As I thought, the chameleon contract. We can get out of here by destroying or signing it. Since Naruto and I have already signed the Toad contract, I think Fu should sign this. Jiraiya said. Fu was about to respond when they heard a roar and the walls began to turn to flesh. Quick Fu, sign it. Jiraiya said urgently. Fu ran to the altar and practically tore open the scroll. She briefly scanned the names before she bit her finger and signed the scroll in blood. Now, give it an order. Jiraiya instructed as the walls began to move to attack again. Stop. Fu yelled. At her command, the walls stopped moving. Let us go. Fu said. The walls returned to their stone guise, and seeing nothing of note, the trio began to simply walk out of the mansion. Is that it? Naruto asked as he looked around for any signs of attack. That's it. Come on. Let's get out of here. We need to release it from its order. It's been stuck here for 50 years. Jiraiya said. Yeah, being stuck here for 50 years must really suck. Naruto said, and Fu nodded as they walked back outside. Though the sky was still overcast, the rain had stopped. Okay. I release you from the command of Kuza Kubasaki. Fu commanded, recalling the name of the former master of the castle. The castle began to shift, turning green and reshaping itself, until it had returned into its true form, a giant chameleon as tall as the castle, with green scales, possessing a trio horns at the center of its head and a row of spikes down its spine. The chameleon opened its eyes, both of which quickly focused on the green-haired Jinchuriki. I thank you for releasing me, young one. What is your name? The chameleon asked, its voice deep and grating. My name is Fu, your new summoner. I am Shiromari, leader of the chameleons. As you have signed our contract, and in return for releasing me, we will aid you from this day forth. Now, I have 50 years of catching up to do with my family. Farewell. Shiromari said before vanishing in a huge burst of smoke. Well, today was certainly eventful, and the rain stopped. Jiraiya said, okay, I think we've had enough excitement for today. Let's make camp around here. We'll continue in the morning. Jiraiya said as he led his students to find a good spot to make their camp. In the morning, Naruto and Fu were sitting on a pair of logs before the remains of a campfire. Jiraiya, who had woken up late, was getting ready, and Naruto and Fu were ready to go. Ero-sensei mentioned you signed the Toad contract, so, what can they do? Fu asked Naruto, who took on a thoughtful expression. I'm not really sure. Whenever I've summoned them, I always just have them fight. I know Pervy Sage once summoned the stomach of a toad around us, but that's it. Naruto replied. You don't know. Fu asked, surprised. You don't know what yours can do either. Naruto said, crossing his arms. Yeah, but I just got them, and no one's seen this contract in 50 years. You, on the other hand, had the Toad contract and have been traveling with someone who mastered their abilities for months. Fu pointed out with a smirk. Yeah, well, Naruto rubbed the back of his head and smiled sheepishly. We both need to learn more about our summons, let's just call one of them and ask. Good idea, Naruto replied before they both bit their thumbs and made hand signs. Summoning jutsu. Both call out as they slam their hands to the ground. Two small clouds of smoke poof into existence. When they cleared, Fu had summoned a small green chameleon with brown markings on its face and along its back, while Naruto summoned a small orange toad with blue markings along his eyes and lips in a blue jacket. What's up? The toad, Gamakichi asked. You must be our new summoner. The chameleon said. I am Daichi, grandson of Shiromari. Thanks for freeing Gramps, I'd only heard of him till yesterday. You're welcome, although, we didn't have much choice, you know. Fu replied. Guess that's true, still, thanks. Whoa, a chameleon. It's been a long time since you've left your forest. Say kid, who's she? Your new girlfriend? Gamakichi asked with a smirk, causing Naruto and Fu's eyes to widen and blushes to appear on their faces. Wah. What makes you think I'm his girlfriend? Fu asked, waving her hands in front of her. Yeah, I mean, she couldn't be my girlfriend, what gave you that idea? Naruto asked, still blushing. What's that supposed to mean? Fu scowled, and Naruto knew if he said the wrong thing he'd be a dead man. I mean, I've only known you for about a week, it's too soon to think about something like that. He replied quickly while raising his hands in defense, and Fu's anger seemed to subside a bit. Besides, there's a girl I like back at Konoha, Naruto said sadly as he remembered when Sakura begged him to bring Sasuke back. He knew she loved Sasuke and it hurt. Part of the reason he wanted to save Sasuke was so Sakura could be happy, even if it wasn't with him. Oh, Fu said quietly, not sure why that hurt a little. They both seemed a bit gloomy after this. Hey, what's with the gloomy atmosphere? Anyway, why did you call us? Gamakichi asked. I'm curious about that too. Daichi added. Oh yeah, we were wondering, what can you guys do? We were talking and we realized we don't know much about your abilities. I mean, all we know is your Gramps can disguise himself as a castle, he gestures to Daichi. And you guys can attack with your tongues and the chief has his sword and that water jutsu. Do you have any special abilities? What? You've been with the old guy all this time and haven't asked him? Gamakichi asked a bit surprised, causing Naruto to look sheepish and Fu to smirk. Well, some of us can do something like what you just said his Gramps did, some of us can use water, fire and wind jutsu, and we can combine them with your jutsu for stronger attacks. Huh, this is the first you're hearing of collaboration jutsu? Gamakichi asked shocked. Daichi seemed surprised as well. Yeah, the meaning's pretty obvious though, combining techniques for a stronger attack, right? Fu asked. Well yeah, but there's a bit more to it. Gamakichi said. Collaboration jutsu is combining complementary ninjutsu and elements or techniques that require multiple users working together. For example, several ninja working together to create a powerful barrier, or, you know how wind makes fire stronger. Daichi began to explain, getting nods from the two. He continued. Well, let's say you summon Gramps, he has the wind and water elements, if you combined his wind with a fire jutsu of your own, it would create a firestorm. Yeah, you get the same result by combining Pop's toad oil bullet with a fire jutsu, and if that were then combined with a wind jutsu, Gamakichi explained. Wow, sounds awesome, Naruto said. Yeah, but there's more to it than just combining jutsu. You have to time it just right and synchronize your chakra for maximum effect or for some techniques to work at all. Aside from that, there are lots of toads with special abilities, seals, barriers, partial summons like you mentioned earlier, sage arts. Sage arts? I don't really know much about it yet. Ask the old man, he'd be able to explain our abilities better anyway. As for us, we can use water, fire, wind and earth techniques, we can attack with our tongues, and have some other abilities you should call someone older to explain. Also, Daichi explained, before he suddenly faded from sight, blending in with his surroundings and his presence completely vanished. Gamakichi, knowing about this ability, wasn't surprised, but Naruto and Fu looked around in shock, before Fu suddenly jumps and looked to her leg, her gaze rapidly shifting as if following something that was crawling up her body until it stopped beside her neck. The young chameleon reappeared there on her shoulder. We can completely blend in with our surroundings and hide our presence, though we will teach you to detect us and possibly imitate this ability. This, along with our earth jutsu that allows us to tunnel through the ground quickly, makes us excellent spies and perfect for sneak attacks, though there are some abilities that can still detect us. Seriously, that sounds perfect for pranks. Naruto said. That's true, and please don't do that again. Fu said. Sorry, couldn't resist. Daichi said with a smirk. So, if that's all you wanted, got any snacks? Gamakichi asked. If you got any, I'd like some too. Daichi added. Huh, oh sorry, we're on a training trip right now so we don't really have things like that, we'll get you some next time we stop in a town though. Naruto said. Well, thanks in advance. See ya. Gamakichi said before dispelling himself and returning to the Toad's Mountain. If you have no other reason for me to be here, I'll be heading back too. Daichi said before he left as well. I was wondering how long it would take for you to start asking about your summons. Jiraiya said as he stepped out from the tree line. You heard all that pervy sage? Naruto asked. Yeah, come on, let's get going. Jiraiya said as he sealed up their tents and sleeping bags. I'll give you a rundown on some of the Toad's abilities as we go. Sorry Fu, but you're going to have to ask the chameleons for more about their abilities. Wow, was all Naruto could say as he gazed at the valley before him. It had been a week and they had arrived at their destination. Naruto now knew a little about the Toad's special abilities and Jiraiya assured him he would show him some of them later. They stood before an enormous, majestic valley with a deep forest and several waterfalls and rivers. Yep, this is the place. Come on, we're headed to that waterfall. Jiraiya said before he and his apprentices began rapidly jumping down the valley wall and from tree to tree, reaching their destination, a clearing before a waterfall, where the water pooled into a large lake that fed a river, in under a minute. So, what are we going to do, Ero-sensei? Fu asked. Well, this place has everything we need for your elemental training, among other things, but right now, we'll be focusing on something else. Jiraiya said, showing a grin that worried his two apprentices. Oh, by the way, Fu, where's your seal located? The center of my chest, why? Fu asked, indicating the area just below the base of her neck. What do you have in mind? Naruto asked. I want you to master your chakra control. Jiraiya replied, still grinning. What? After all that time I spent on chakra control, I can form a Rasengan perfectly already, it seems like a waste of time. Yeah, but I don't have that level of chakra control yet, and the better our control, the more powerful our jutsu will be and the less energy we'll use in them. Fu said. Well, I guess you're right. Naruto pouted. Don't be so down, if I'm right, by the time this is through, your chakra control should be good enough to cast genjutsu. Jiraiya said, shocking Naruto and Fu. Jinchuriki typically could not cast genjutsu due to their large chakra supplies and consequential lack of control. You two should brace yourselves. Jiraiya said as he drew his hands back. Before they could ask what he was planning, he shot forward, his fingertips glowing with chakra, and slammed his hands into their Naruto's stomach and Fu's chest and called out, "Five-pronged seal." Both cried out in pain and were sent sprawling on the ground unconscious. They awoke half an hour later. "So, you're finally up, huh?" Jiraiya asked. "Ah, hey, what's the big idea? Wait, not this again," Naruto said, as he looked to the Kyuubi's seal and realized what Jiraiya had done. "Ow, you've been through that before?" Fu asked, sitting up with a hand over her seal. "Yeah, Orochimaru used it on me when he snuck into the Chunin exams. It shot my chakra control to hell." "I get it, we're supposed to master controlling our chakra while these seals interfere, right?" Fu guessed. "You got it. I want you each to create 100 clones and devote 75 to chakra control for the next 3 weeks. Use the rest to make sure you don't fall behind in your other subjects. After that, you'll continue to train with the seals on until you master manipulating your elements. You should get started," Jiraiya said. Seeing the benefits, they decided not to argue and went to create the clones. Much to their surprise, Fu created less than half her target number and Naruto created about 2/3. "What the?" Naruto said, puzzled. "Don't forget about the seals," Jiraiya said with a smirk. "It's going to be harder for you to create clones with them messing with your chakra flow." "Right," Fu said as she prepared to use the jutsu again.